session would be on AI and the emerging world order, construction, disruption, and regulation. I would like to invite session chair, Mr. Subimal Bhattacharjee, to please come on the stage. Round of applause for him, please. Mr. Bhattacharjee is an independent advisor and consultant on cybersecurity, defense, and high-end technology policy issues based out of New Delhi. His forays into writing and filmmaking are also established, and he's a regular columnist and television panelist on contemporary technology and security issues. Before I hand it over to him, just a small request, as we are way behind the schedule, if you keep your questions short. I understand that you want to also voice your opinion, but I would really appreciate if you directly come to your questions when given a chance. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Abhinav, for inviting me. Since this is a geopolitics dialogue, so our topic would be, of course, it's AI, but all around the geopolitics. I would invite my fellow panelists, Colonel Pavitran Rajan, Shatakratu Sahu, Mr. Kundanlal ji, and from Greece, Professor Nikos is going to join us. Professor Nikos, can you just put a word so that we know you are here?
Yes, yes, I'm here. Good morning. And thank you very much.
Yeah. You know, we are at a very interesting point of time. Even when Abhinav planned this session, something more disruptive around the AI ecosystem still hadn't happened. And in the last 2 days that I've been here, I've seen so many questions put across around where AI is going or what's the impact of the more larger canvas if you pick up technology as such, how it is moving around geopolitics, how it is shaping geopolitics, and all of the concerns. So as chair for this session with this very distinguished panelists who have their known areas of expertise and hence intervention, and we are just going to do the question-answer format here. I would just say that while we are looking at the construct and destruct as well as the regulation part of AI in this session, it would be very pertinent to go back to where the whole geopolitics around tech is shaping up. The first point that we should note is that the impact of information communication technology on international security was raised in a General Assembly resolution of the UN in the year 1998 by Russia, a specific resolution 53/70. Subsequent to that, a group of governmental experts was formed. Didn't have any outcome. In 2009, another group of governmental experts was formed. I was one of the members invited as part of the context setting and what would be deliberated upon. And subsequently, we have had, I think, 6 in total. The last result came, or the last report came in 2021, which laid out 13 still, I can say, non-binding norms, but it generally gave a shape around where the nations were talking, where even the tech players who are no less powerful than nations in this space, all were conversing and trying to see if there is a way in which you could come and have an understanding about how you deal with this on a global scale. You have nuclear deliberations, you have space deliberations, all of that have a certain, or even say a little bit the climate deliberation, all of them have a certain very clear kind of an understanding about where things are shaping. But this is such a dynamically evolving medium that technology changes fast, and by the time people grasp it from the various perspectives, it gets too late to think that the geopolitics dimensions is also something that there is enough time to talk about and shape some deliberation. So this is where our initial thoughts about keeping the cyberspace secured on the radar the way now it is around everywhere. But what has come is that today we have so much of data available, and the way this data can be processed using whatever technology that we have been able to do, or maybe even to use the word modeling and large language modeling as such. The intelligence around such huge troves of data available anywhere to process, gain intelligence, and then utilize it for good and bad purposes, now that's the trigger for the worry. So I think we are at a point of time where we are deliberating. You just saw the AI Action Summit in Paris, where despite everything and a kind of a direction in which you almost touched many of the things in open, transparent AI ecosystem, trying to look at the work and the labor dimension, trying to look at how do you help innovation that helps grow and keep the system more effective and secure. So all the broad larger issues were taken up, deliberated, and finally 60 nations signed a communique with the exception of the US and UK. Of course, both had completely different reasons and possibly still not understood in what context they took. But if you look at this, that India, France, China, Australia, all of these countries could see a common picture in trying to see that artificial intelligence remains open, safe, evolving, and of good use to humanity. So there is the construct part, there is the destruct part, and the efforts to see that regulations also come in, and if at all the regulations can be effective. You also had the phenomena of a new presidency in the US, which is looking at technology not from a different dimension, but from a little bit of deviation from what people would have thought that this is the way we'll look at the whole tech ecosystem, whether it's from a global convergence or whether it's for purposes which force-enable defense technologies, weapons, equipments, where the weaponization of artificial intelligence also could go to. We have a situation where the richest man in the world is himself dabbling a lot around the artificial intelligence space, where you see that there's some bid he's putting up also to pick up OpenAI. You have seen the disruption that on the 20th Jan, when Mr. Trump took office from China, DeepSeek came, and suddenly at 100 the cost, it was able to offer you whatever you were possibly paying for, whether it was for Claude or for OpenAI, all of that stuff. So suddenly you saw that the whole story around NVIDIA and the GPUs, the US stock market immediately gave the results out to everyone. So the whole medium around artificial intelligence today is evolving, it is dynamic, it has its nuances, and we still don't know what shape it will possibly take even in the next 6 months. Sitting here, I was seeing someone using DeepFake to generate some questions also. So now this is the ease with which we are possibly being enabled with a tool. But the further dimension of using all the intelligence that you get from the trove of data to be able to use it for launching newer cyber attacks, going after, matching it with kinetics, all of that, these are some of the worrying signs. So with this introductory remarks, I would like to proceed with my distinguished panelists. I would first like to go to Colonel Pavitran. Even before we had the Y2K as a issue, and then finally we sailed through very well. He has been in this sector. He has seen the historical evolution of this whole space, from getting in tech for, making your work and everything efficient, and then looking at the cybersecurity dimension, and now migrating to AI. So, 7 minutes.
Okay, you gave me a chance to thank you, firstly, for the chair, for that small little brief. So I'm an infantryman who's come into this field for the last 2 decades. So let me give you a slightly historical context, because it's very important. India, civilizational state, it has created some wonderful, ideas. One of those ideas is the parable of the blind man and the elephant. Okay, if you look at it, it's there for the last 1,000 years in different forms. An Englishman has also adopted it and written a wonderful poem called the 5 Blind Men and the Elephant. So when you look at artificial intelligence, it's like the elephant. And Indians, because we are a multicultural state, has all grasped different parts of that elephant. And we've still not seen the full elephant. Okay? Because this ICT world did not start today. It started off quite some time back. And at that time, I remember China was considered quite behind, and India was considered a superpower in software. No one says that today. And I congratulate the Chinese for what they've done. It shows the power of foresight, and it shows the power of identifying the battle in which you're fighting. Unfortunately for India, although I sit here in this audience, I have to admit that we as a nation have failed to identify that fight. So what's the fight all about? Because although the world has changed, the Homo sapien remains the same. We study history basically because we have not evolved much since history started. And our primary motivations, the intrinsic motivations of man, and then tribes and nations, and they continue to remain the same. And it's usually, in an intra-state perspective, it is about small groups of people trying to dominate the rest, and in an international forum, other states trying to dominate smaller states. Now, unfortunately, I belong to a state which is civilizational and which has got great latent power potential. What can apply for other smaller states might not necessarily apply to me. I find myself in that fundamental question where I look at that and I see that what can happen for Europe, a small state, what can happen for an African state or a Middle East state cannot apply to India. We are too large. Never in the history of mankind has other powers willingly raised a second power to rise beyond them. It's a simple fact. If our nation's aim is to rise so that our people can get a better quality of life or a better per capita income, for India to rise like that state, it will definitely upset the geopolitical calculation of other states. If that fundamental thing is not understood by Indians, the world is not going to teach us this. And that is the reason, because I listened to all the other eminent speakers who said that why do we keep negotiating with China? When it is so obvious China doesn't want to negotiate. I'm not blaming China, it is India's problem. Therein comes artificial intelligence. Finally, it was all a fight about ICT and data. For the last 2 decades, we tried to anticipate and say that there is an issue, but we have not recognized that issue ourselves. And we have a huge problem there. There are still people in India, very powerful people, who head our technological sectors, who advocate that we should ride on fundamental models built by other nations. Is that workable? Why is it not questioned? Is it constitutional? I start that off as a small background. I don't want to, I will wait for the rest of the speakers to say, and then we can revisit these questions. Thank you.
That's very nice. State within your time limit. I'll come to Dr. Lal at this stage. You have been around the constructive part of AI, may I say. As Colonel Pravitran said, where is the journey in this country? Where is the realization that this journey has a much larger strategic vision rather than only thinking that in agriculture, education, or even cancer detection, we could do something very well. More than, what is a great social media and media projection that, we are doing so well, we have the IT talents of the world and everything and all. So how would you put that in perspective and build up your discourse?
Thank you. See, the way, it's a vast topic, but the way I would like to present it is specifically the focus which we have more on geopolitics and disruption. We need to understand few facts about AI, okay, and which I feel when I'm doing a presentation across the bureaucracy, the political class, the community, that understanding we are missing. First of all, the whole race of AI which is on, this is for a decisive strategic advantage. A decisive strategic advantage, when you try to define it, is like a nuclear technology. They made a nuclear bomb, they put it on Nagasaki, Hiroshima, a million people vanished, they understood, Japan kneeled down. That was a decisive strategic advantage. When they understood that, they put up a non-proliferation treaty, and country like us, India, we took 32 years to get that technology and do our own Pokhran. 32 saal laga tha. Okay. Now, the second, they developed the Star Wars, ICBMs, IRBMs, rocketry, the space technology, and they, as soon as they understood they can bomb any country across the globe, they put up a ban on cryogenic engines. Okay? We took 25 years to put our first rocket in space. At this point of time, US has pumped in more than $3 trillion into AI. They have got a partnership on AI. The companies like IBM, Microsoft, Apple, they have adopted AI first strategy. Whatever we will do with the AI first. And you must have heard President Trump has announced $500 million. $500 million, let's try to understand that. Our economy is around $3 trillion. 1/6 of that they have put into Project Stargate to improve their infrastructure, data, and they are walking away from all regulation around it. They've just announced, as an emergency order by President Trump, that these data centers can be provided energy directly in contravention of any climatic rules or agreement we have done. Okay? So that is the second part of the game which is there on that, the whole thing which is happening. The third, which they are working upon with all this investment, China has put in more than $107 billion into AI. They have been preparing for last 2 decades, not today. So this AI, what we are looking at, it is not today. They have been preparing for it for last 20 years. Okay? And that is the reason they are here. The third decisive strategic advantage they are working on with all this investment is the singleton. The single authority across the globe which will set the narrative, which will put the food on our table, which will serve us, okay? But they will also dominate the world with that, okay? So either it is few corporates or few countries who are investing into it, they will be doing it. What we are doing? We are doing a kind of a lip service. Our AI visa is only $1 million in front of this whole thing. So that is the first part of decisive strategic advantage. Now that leads to one factor which we need to, as an Indians, need to realize is this, that Industrial Revolution 1.0, which we were not part to, it happened due to steam. We were not part to it, and the reason was, and that was the resultant was, that we were slaves for 200 years. 2.0, it happened due to electricity. It created the divide of developed nations and underdeveloped countries like us. 3.0, it was due to computing, where we caught up, right? We went to the world, they understood that Indians are smart people too. We have got 55% of the entire global IT services, $387 billion of IT exports, 3.5 million people working into those directions. But 4.0, which is happening now with AI, if we are not party to it, we are looking at a perpetual slavery, a slavery where we will be happy. We'll have food on our table, which IBM calls it precision agriculture. AI will sow the seed, grow it up, rip it, process it, and bring the food on our table. We'll have autonomous vehicles everywhere. Okay, so you can travel anywhere you want to. But then we will not have Swatta. I think we understand what Swatta is. The decision-making authority will not live on. That is a perpetual slavery, which I call it. So we are heading towards it. Probably we are already into it. We have to wake up to that fact. So that is one area. Second, all this investment which is happening currently is happening, which I call it a potentialism. AI has got a transformative impact. Transformative and so powerful impact, which we need to realize, like if you look at the quantum chip, 105 qubits, below Google launched it. It has got a quantum, the calculation capability, which a supercomputer like Fukugawa in Japan, which does around 440 petaflops, will take 1 septillion years. You know, our universe age is only 13.6 billion years. So that is the second area which they are doing. They are investing into it to improve our infrastructure, our lifestyle, and probably few countries' lifestyle. The investment is happening there. We should be worried about that how do we leverage technology for technological abundance, and India needs that. The third aspect, which we need to understand where we can contribute to, they are also investing into a space like AlphaFold 2, which is to extend the human life. Our expectancy of life at this point of time is around 70 years. They want to push it beyond 150, 500 years. Death will become an option. That is the targeted. They are leveraging AI for doing that. So that is the third area. You need to relate all these three areas. Subjugate, increase lifespan, have a better lifestyle, infrastructure to support. That is where this world is going to. Countries are walking into, be it China, be it US. We need to be there. We need to be part of it. We need to ensure a soft landing of this technology. Okay? So if they do it, we should also do that. We should also innovate. We should also have product. We don't have data sovereignty at this point of time. We are worried about DeepSeek taking our data to China. What has happened? ChatGPT has been taking our data from long time. Recently, I searched on perplexity.ai, only my name, and it came out with every damn thing which I have gone through in my life. So they know more about us than what we know about us. And our data accessibility is not there. So as a sovereign nation, tomorrow, we will need sovereign AI too. So we have to understand the strategies which China adopted. They had Google, they have got Baidu. They had got Amazon, they got Alibaba. Okay? So they protected their data and trained AI. They created their own social index. We can understand from those strategic initiatives, see how do we achieve our data sovereignty and how do we innovate around AI. We have got a lot of cultural tradition, a lot of understanding, Puranas, barbaric. There are understandings which are there, which we can leverage and innovate. They are being leveraged at this point of time, like Sanskrit. It is an unambiguous language, and probably tomorrow a language to talk to AI. But we are not working on that. So we have to look at it, delve deeper, and innovate around it. Thank you.
Excellent. 7 minutes sharp dot. Dr. Nikos, you might be wondering, why you are waiting. So we have almost mostly been on the, India circuit at this point of time, and how we build up our capabilities despite the talent available. With your background around the media and journalism, academia, and what you are observing all around that's going the world, I would think you have to put across a wider canvas about how the whole AI ecosystem evolves. How do we manage it? How do we regulate it? And how do we be champions of having it to our advantage? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman of this session. Good morning to everyone from Greece. I would like to apologize for not being there with you, as I see actually the chair with the empty chair. I would like actually to explain why I'm not present. It is because of an urgent medical issue that my family had to deal with that actually did not allow me to be there with you. Chairman, I have followed the fellow speakers, and I will present from the Europe side. You mentioned before the AI conference that has been organized in Paris, and I think that it stands out as a major conference where I think the two important dilemmas were brought up. So the one acknowledgement it is that AI, as well as digital media and more especially tech platforms, are the new field of geopolitical antagonism. This means that actually they stopped being or witnessed or approached from the digital perspective, but serious questions arises since they became a tool actually for geopolitical gains and geopolitical background. As US and China actually dominate AI through aggressive innovation, investment, and strategic state policies, as it was mentioned before by my fellow co-speakers, we stand in a crossroad. Europe underlined the necessity to ensure ethical AI or to ensure some boundaries or some limits in developing AI, and at the same time maintaining global competitiveness. Is that possible? We are not sure, because as it has been underlined by the recent decision of President Trump, as well as from Chinese policies, the field is open and the message is there and very clear. No limits, do whatever you need to do in order for our countries to have geopolitical advancement. So what is the European model that it is projected? Europe has been the first, EU has been the first entity that has put into action the AI Act. That was actually a pioneering effort to establish a global gold standard for AI regulation in order to safeguard transparency, fairness, accountability, and human-centric AI. Because, and I would like to emphasize that, who will be the one that it will safeguard our countries from the tech oligarchs? Who will be the one actually that will set the limits and will set actually the boundaries? If we take or if we go by the decision of unlimited development of AI, it means that someday we might find ourselves with food on the table and digital technologies at the same time and competencies, but having abolished our control of our destiny and our fate. It is an important element. Who will control the new gatekeepers? Because they are the gatekeepers. We have seen that in many elections, example. Do we need actually to establish this actually approach? I suggest yes. Europe's strategic position, for example, it's not between the dilemma digital sovereignty against innovation slowdown. It is actually the necessity to develop innovation, but on the same time, being on the position to have the upper hand instead of being subordinated under owners of these technologies. We are in a crucial standpoint, not only developing actually AI capabilities, that it will overturn even all the fields and especially war, but we are in a crucial standpoint for our democracies. Who will decide what we will see, how we will take the decisions, and upon on how we will develop our societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nikos. I'm so happy that three of my panelists stick to the 7-minute slot. I'm so happy you also raised the issue of, where Europe is. So per se, you would have seen that Europe has always maybe remained on a little back foot on the innovation, but more vibrant on the regulations and all those stuff in the last decade, whether it was GDPR and looking at how do you deal with data and everything and all. So what is the journey ahead? Of course, regulations and the regulatory regime, evolving it for the AI ecosystem would be very, very important. And nobody better to speak about it than Shatak Ratu. He has written also on this, he studies this very closely. So, your perspective.
Thank you. So, absolutely no pressure to keep it under 7. So, I think until now we've covered all bases in terms of geopolitical developments. We've spoken about DeepSeek, we've spoken about the Paris AI Action Summit. On that, I would just want to highlight that earlier 2 summits were called AI Safety Summits, and now it's changed to AI Action Summit because there's a bigger push for pro-innovation, and India is of course going to host the next one. So we'll see what develops there. But there's a change of narrative globally that your safety discussion shouldn't compromise pro-innovation or opportunity, and we should also listen to carefully J.D. Vance's speech at Paris, which focused on how US will focus on AI opportunity and not AI safety. And this is a continuation of US's deregulation stance. We heard from another panelist how US doesn't want to regulate AI, and Trump on the very first or second day repealed the executive order of 2023 as well. So that's covered. Only one thing I want to add to the developments is that we should also highlight the PM Modi's visit to US and the fact sheet which came out yesterday between US and India. The technology partnership will not be called ISET anymore, it will be called Trust. And within that, there's a particular focus on AI, that US-based AI infrastructure will be brought into India, and the governments will work with industry players to identify what are the roadblocks to that. And they've identified end of this year as a timeline to do that. It's very interesting because US has a very stringent export control laws on AI, especially in January 2025, they came out with the AI diffusion framework, which puts out every country in the world into 3 categories. India falls into the middle category, tier 2. So I thought I'd just highlight that development before going into regulation. And I'll just take one more pit stop before speaking about regulation, is that in India, we should just briefly understand where are we at AI. In terms of capacity, so we all know, I'm assuming we all know, AI is basically 3 elements. It's your data sets, it's your large language models, and it's your compute power which helps train that data sets onto the large language model. So India has a lot of data sets, but it's most likely not in the digestible form for Western large language models, and the Indian government is working very hard to digitize the Indian data. And it's also going to come up with the India Datasets platform. That's data done. On compute, last year we announced procuring 10,000 GPUs, and 2 weeks back, the IT minister mentioned that India has procured close to 19,000 GPUs, 18,600 something. So that's going well, but then the next step is building our own large language model. Colonel Rajan also mentioned about, he alluded to sovereign AI. And so if India does have a LLM of its own going forward, that'll be sovereign AI for us. So, and the position of the Indian government on AI regulation right now is to probably create a code of ethics for the industry to follow, support self-regulation, and just leave it there. We should just understand this position right now. And now I'll just briefly delve into, like, where is India on AI regulation? I co-authored a working paper with my colleague Amlan, and we socialized that with the government as well. It was well received. So just in the interest of time, I'll just set out the policy roadmap which we've written in that working paper. 4 points there. First is, in India especially, there is a lack of understanding of what does the AI value chain look like and which are the players in that value chain. There are developers, deployers, users, but at times the same entity could be a developer and a deployer. At times they could be separate. So there's a critical need to understand the full AI ecosystem properly, because only once you understand the AI ecosystem will you understand what kind of obligations you want to place on particular players in that ecosystem. And closely tied to that point is the second one, is that India doesn't have a clear understanding of AI benefits and harms both. Broadly, we all know AI helps in agriculture, health, education, but we don't have a clear understanding of the use cases which would benefit the public sector, the citizens at large and the private sector as well. I think something which could be done there is create a repository of AI use cases and then you focus there. That's the second part. And then regulation, we always talk about regulation. The moment there are any AI harms, we say let's bring in an AI regulation. But what critical step missing here is that India also doesn't have a clear understanding of AI harms. And here I'd like to just take a moment to describe the relation between risk and harms. We keep on hearing about the EU AI Act having a risk-based approach. We keep on saying India should regulate high-risk use cases. So what is risk and what is harm? Risk is basically the probability of a harm occurring and the evidence of that harm. That is the formula. It's out in the Joshua Bengio report on international safety. So we need to understand that risk is future looking. When we say something is risky in, let's say, the agriculture sector, we mean to say something may go bad in the future. But to correctly analyze what that risk is or how harmful that could be, we need the evidence of harm. Harm is so backward looking. So here, the Indian ecosystem should understand AI harms better and also try to collate the evidence of harm in the local ecosystem. Because once you do that, then you can map it onto a risk classification framework. You can see which harms are high risk, which are low risk, and then that you can map to particular obligations. That's the second point I'm closing. The third point is presently, before introducing any new AI law or regulation, India should focus on applying the existing laws. This is something which I've said with my co-author in our report, and subsequently 2 months later, the IT Secretary has also mentioned this. So what this means is that for any AI harm which you can think of, let's say deepfakes, or impersonation, or privacy harms, there are many existing laws in the Indian system which apply. For example, deepfakes can be properly tackled with provisions in the IT Act 2000 or the new IPC, which is called the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. Similarly, for other kind of AI harms also, there are a lot of existing legal provisions. So you apply the existing legal provisions, and for whichever harm that your existing legal provisions are not good enough, you focus there for new regulations. Just building on that point, so we categorize 3 types of cases where you don't need a creatively about obligation. We may need transparency obligations for, let's say, a harm towards consumers. So yeah, just eye on clock. So finally, like the key recommendation which is out in my working paper is that we should start with self-regulation. You start with self-regulation because industry is the one building the technology. It has the technical expertise, and in the ecosystem there are also incentive mechanisms already in place for certain government procurement contract. It's better for the industry to show compliance with self-regulation that gets them to sign on to those contracts. And self-regulation can happen with any parallel law, so there's no problem there. There's one inherent problem of conflict of interest there, that the people who are developing the law itself are expected to follow certain rules. But for that, the other 2 options which we can talk about later is, one is co-regulation, in which I believe there's lack of conceptual clarity in India, and then there's binding regulation. We spoke about the EU AI Act. There's a study by the European Commission how it will cost the global industry between 1.6 billion euros to 3.3 billion euros to comply with the EU AI Act. So I'll just stop there, sir, and we can take it forward.
Thank you, Shatatpratu. You raised quite a few points. Since we did well by reducing the time for the first round questions, we can go to another round of questions. So, Colonel Pavitran, I would try to think that how do you see the infrastructure around the universities and you can say the human resources part also, as part of the whole effort that we are thinking that we need to mop up. We have a lot of institutions, but are we really honing the skills, or are the curriculum tuned well to be able to get the right kind of talent, or we just produce unemployable engineers also? And secondly, where do you see the efforts around the military and the security ecosystems, where we are talking a lot about Make in India, Atmanirbharta? We have done also well in many cases. And with AI as a force multiplier for weapons, equipments, and operations, and of course, everyone from the army chief to everyone keeps on saying that we have to be more technology centered. This is the year for that too. So where is the guidance in that direction?
Okay, so I tackle your first question. So India has been successful in creating a ITES industry where we have basically been supplying our human resource to the world, mostly to the US. Okay, it's given us some measure of success in the sense that it's given a lot of employment to our upwardly mobile population. I remember from the 90s when we transited to this, India was seen as a force which is rising, and we had a dream of, India could reach where it is. But what we failed to anticipate was that it's a area of geopolitical contestation. And when you look at it from that perspective, as a nation which has got its independence from a colonial framework merely 75 years back, I see utterly, how would I put it, for a better word, utterly dark clouds covering the horizon. Because we are not ready. It is not the human resource alone which we need to prepare. We need to have enabling strategy and policy to ensure that it protects India's interests. Because finally, today we all exist, although it's a common humanity, we all exist with different passports. Because I remember when this ICT entered, we were lulled into, a feeling of the narratives which came out, the global village, the earth is flat, etc. were very, attractive narratives. Although people like me said that you need to be careful because definitely the earth is not flat and the village is not global. But then, today it is very clear that there is no village. It was just an illusion in our minds. And it is very clear that the earth is not flat, although many Indians claim that we were the first to see centuries before that the earth is round. But that's where we are today. So, it is not merely academia. The largest thing for India, although I know that there is a global community sitting out here, but India is 1/6 of humanity, and if India doesn't get its act correct, humanity will suffer. To extrapolate on that, when Snowden revelations happened, we knew that it will come back to bite the United States itself. Although it's a great democracy, that sort of surveillance, advantage to a very limited set of people will corrupt the system, and absolute power will corrupt absolutely. So there comes AI. This is a chance where few people, a few companies, and few nations, if they get a chance to control absolute power, because the humankind is not evolved, I see great dangers ahead. So for India, we have tried our best to explain that there are multiple steps which other nations have done to create an innovation ecosystem. I've written a whole book on it, so I will not try to expand on that. We have not got that thing correct. Secondly, then it comes to the military field. Now, as a military man, I was listening very carefully to Colonel Miri explain that the blindness. The ability to imagine the unthinkable is what differentiates a successful nation or a successful species. The ability to foresee where we are going to be tomorrow. Now that's not this was always revered in mankind. There were oracles. But with AI and the entire set of humanity's data being accessible, oracles can become much more, much more prescient. Let me put it, for want of a better word, much more prescient. It has got advantages and it's got disadvantages. It is very clearly the world is going to be divided into people who control AI and nations and people who supply data for that AI to feed on. Today, unfortunately, vast sections of the global south, majority of which is Indians, fall in the latter category. And we need to change this if we have to preserve not only our sovereignty and our democracy. So I'll make it brief and I'll give it back to you.
So just a small intervention. We have just 5 minutes for questions.
May I come to you, Professor Nikos? Quick, just quick 2-minute intervention. Where do you see the ramp up? We are possibly understanding or visibly seeing a US versus China kind of a story as far as the AI geopolitics is right now concerned. Where do you see the European ramp up? Where do you see even a different or a wider Asia ramp up around all those things? Quick answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Very quick. Despite my profession as a professor, that we tend to like a lot to speak, I will be very quick. You will allow me actually to emphasize the following. Yes, despite that we are nations, that nation in a way tends to overcome other alliances, I will project EU's example. I think that especially in these two major antagonisms that it might actually seem that reveals the Cold War, we need actually to come together in order to respond to these very critical questions. Who will actually regulate the field, or we will actually increase the speed towards an unknown future? Instead of actually increasing the speed, we should consider actually to pull the brake from time to time, just to understand actually and being in the position to control these powers. Because we might endanger, and I will use some part of the Greek mythology, we might endanger unleashing the box of Pandora. AI, it constitutes a major change. But at the same time, all these major changes, in order to be able to be regulated, we need a coalition of countries. Otherwise, I'm not so optimistic of the future and what it will withhold. I'm not a technophobic, I'm fully in technology, I fully support all these changes, but I think it is a major question that we need to respond is who will control all this.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Lal, where do you see the LLM journey? Very quick.
So the way I look at that LLM brain is it's the only initial stages. So let's try to put our thoughts around it. We call this world which we are living in is a machine learning world. It's artificial narrow intelligence world. The AI, whatever we teach, if we teach certain other things, it forgets it, these algorithms, okay? And second, it operates on the structured data set. Very soon, from narrow intelligence, it is moving to, or probably already moved to, the stage we call it artificial general intelligence. That stage, it will be equal to us. It will operate on unstructured data, like we operate. We operate on taciturn, olfactory organ, taste buds, vision, and hearing. These are the 5 senses, Gyanendriya. Okay, so AI will start operating on that, or probably started already operating on it. And if you look at from the perspective of ChatGPT 5.0, they have got an O1 family series, which is already there. They just launched it, which has got a reasoning capability of better than a PhD scholar. So it is, we call it agentic AI. So they have already moved to that stage. Even DeepFake has moved to V1 and R1 families, which has got a capability of making reasons, executing orders, executing things, that have moved into it. The next level of that AGI, when it equals to us, the 140 IQ level which Einstein had, probably I'm having 90 as my wife says, it could be some many others. So I always believe I'm on the lower side of it. But this will cross beyond 140 IQ level, and AGI is supposed to have 5,000 IQ level, which is, we call it a superior AI, or artificial super intelligence level, which they are trying to reach. Okay. So LLM is only the starting point, these algorithms are evolving into a reasoning, general intelligence level, and then to the singleton or ASI level. So that is a journey which we need to be part of it. Second part, I believe the ethical AI and all these who bowl around putting up our regulation and privacy and all, probably is a more of a dope to India, okay? Because we don't have a capacity to define that. If we don't have a capacity of having our own LLMs, our own data set to train upon, then how can we define the regulations around it, right? But then second thought on that is that yes, we can also take a lead, like we are working upon Gandhian philosophy, can be a guiding light for AI security, privacy, and ethical value system. So that is something which we can take a lead, probably teach the globe, and also say that yes, how do we collaborate for a better humanity or for the humanity perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, terrific. Shatabratu, you touched on a lot of things, but I directed the LLM question to him, and computing also becomes very, very important. You know, the high performance computing, the technology around that, you know, and what is it that can easily come to us also, because I think it will take a long, long time for us around the computing ecosystem to really gain steam in this country. Now, where do you see this whole effort happening? You know, buying NVIDIA GPUs or maybe even tomorrow from AMD and all, possibly is a very short-term solution from the kind of perspective that we need from a national core strength point of view.
That's a great question. So, I mean, we can look back at the National Supercomputing Mission of 2014 and we can see how well we did. We did do great. I think the target was 66 petaflops. We achieved probably 25 or 30. So our track record is really not great with housing supercomputers in academic institutions. There's one in CDAC. That it's complicated to answer because we need to do many things parallelly. We need to get the AI infrastructure from the US. And here I'm slightly more conservative on India creating a sovereignty stance. We should focus on use cases for the local context in India. We should see our benefit, and without mincing my word, we should see how do we benefit from it, and we should keep on looking for AI infrastructure to come from elsewhere, and it can only be US, it won't be China. We do that. On the Indian front, I think this 18,600 GPUs which have been procured, it will be good to see how that's utilized. We need to see which parts of the ecosystem you provision these GPUs to and which use cases you give it to, because right now there's no prioritization for use cases. Nobody's telling us if it will be used for commercial purposes, national security purposes, or for scientific breakthroughs. We need to have a clear understanding of these many GPUs you have, what are you going to use for or use it for. So I think that's the short-term strategy. And I think in the longer term, I'll just deviate back to my original point. We need to understand what are we looking to do with AI, and that will tell us how much compute we need, from where we need it, and in how much time we need it. I think it's passé to say that we need to be self-sufficient. So I don't have a direct answer for you, but many moving parts, so I thought I'll highlight it.
I think this question will continue on and on. You know, no one will still have a real answer. So I don't want to keep you away from lunch, and in your own interest, just keep the questions very short so that the answers can also come very precisely, and then we all break out. Bring us up.
You have a mic? No. Anyway, I'll not keep you holding because lunch is waiting for all of us. So would like to be a penalty provider. Firstly, at the outset, since we have had the privilege of sharing platforms in many panel discussions, I'm taking the liberty of complimenting you. Such a fantastic discussion. But my own observation as a student of geopolitics and technology also, we are discussing very too high-end objective which a common man of India may not be able to understand. Why am I making this statement? Because my student is sitting there, and it makes me very immensely proud that you are being heard all over the globe. I think we have a long way to go. I'm taking the Chinese example. It's good to discuss about what the end state, like Sao, he brought out a point, we should be very clear, which we are not, we don't know at the moment. What is alarming is, I just read a book yesterday and one article. China started sometime early part of this century. By 2007, they had a young 1,000 talent program. And in 2007 itself, or 2000, China had how many graduates? They had around 9,000 or STEM PhD doctorates. USA was ahead of them. By 2010, China had overtaken in STEM PhD doctorates. They had 34,080, USA had 26,076. By 2019, China had 49,498, and USA had gone down 33,759. By 2025, which is yet to be completed, they estimate that China is going to cross a figure of 77,790 or something. USA is still at 39,000. India is just about 700 PhD doctorates. out of 700, ladies and gentlemen, 70% have migrated to foreign countries. Isn't that a cause of concern? Unless we cater for or address the core issue, will AI, any amount of talking or end state that we are trying to visualize, will you be able to sustain the requirement and the future battlefield? And as a military man, I visualize there is a great sense of danger if we do not have some kind of a regulation. Chinese have already started deploying the AI platforms along the northern border. I have served along the northern border. There is a danger that there is no man behind the machine. If that machine is given, unrestricted kind of a regulation or authority, the damn chair may be firing the men of China. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. Any more question? Thank you. I think then we can easily go for lunch. I'll answer your question because this is something very close to my heart, the point you raised. NVIDIA, the closest to the, the most valuable company in the world. Now, out of their 13,700 employees, 7,000 are in India. So Mr. Jensen Huang, getting into the top notch around the wealth and everything, of course, DeepSeek brought them down. But out of that 13,500, 600, 78% of their employees are millionaires. 7,000 are in India. Isn't that a question we need to answer? Now, how do we answer? Is it only by building an LLM? Or how do we channelize this collective strength beyond those 7,000, the lakhs who have the talent, whose ideas flow, who can think logically and who are making a difference, whether it's in the computing world, whether it's in the modeling, or whether it's in simple intelligence gathering and the analytics and all. So where, as a national cause, this comes in, and it's just not necessarily only limited to that, beyond that, because we are doing well globally in all the points where we are participating through our people and through our thinking, etc., collaboration, everything. We've done a fantastic job last 2 decades. So while we see that we have to be at the leadership table on this, we still have a lot of things to fill up. The power projection around tech in geopolitics for this nation isn't, I would say, impossible story. There is a story. How do we collectively all bring this together? I think that's a food for thought that we need to put, because then, wherever this whole debate is going around what DeepSeek can get and how could it get, or many others, Alibaba and all are coming up with that. See, the moment this DeepSeek story came, we were buying 10,000 GPUs, now we have 18,000 GPUs. NVIDIA prices went down by almost 80%. So we got now a lot of more stuff than what we should have actually got. The point that I'm trying to make and answering to is, we have to find our solution to be able to channelize the strength, to keep those fellows, and not produce graduates to be employed by others or taken away and then cannot contribute anything to the nation. I think that's a much larger soul-searching story to do, as you would think, I would think, and possibly maybe.
Can I respond to that? That's an amazing question. And let me point you out a few things. During the IT revolution, specifically when India rose to the fact, became the largest producer, and we were working, because I'm an IT professional across the globe, okay, that is the time China picked it up pretty quickly. Few things they did. First of all, they introduced English into their schools. Second, at this point of time, they have got 187 AI institutions doing research, doing innovations, developing IPs. We have got only one AI university, which I was instrumental in getting established in Bombay, Universal AI University. We don't have AI university at all in India, okay? So we don't understand it. US was also conglomerating the same period of time. They brought everything like MIT and all the departments under AI department, okay? Our students, our people, that's the narrative which we have not established. They were able to establish it, that their students have moved, instead of becoming a bureaucrat, they moved to become scientists, right? Innovators. That is where they moved in. Our students are not doing it. Okay, there is still more focus to go into bureaucracy or probably become a politician, but not a scientist, because we don't pay them respect, not the educators. So something which we have failed into that, and we are becoming a failed state. We are worried about Bangladesh. Let me tell you a problem. We are becoming a failed state now. Okay, and then they are reaching to the level of technology which we call it a physical AI. They are merging AI with physical entities like robots, cars, tanks. So they will become independent, they will fire on you, which the other term for that is butcher bots. Okay, that is where they are reaching to. We'll be not able to compete with them, we'll be not able to stand in front of them. We need to wake up, we need to start acting, take radical measures, act an urgency. We need an emergency preparedness and a safety framework at the urgent level. Thank you.
Quickly, sir.
Yeah, 1 minute. So
You could comment on what I said.
yeah. So I'll you ask. I know, sir, you're trying to ask a military question. So let me just try and put it to you. There are multiple steps which you need to take on the ICT framework before you reach a sovereign AI stack. Okay, we have not taken those steps. Right from operating, there is an OSI model in computing. So you have not climbed up that OSI stack. And our policy is for enabling people to create products on either the Chinese platform or the American platform. So we need to concentrate on that. So otherwise there is no military defense of India. Okay? So that's there very clearly. But having said that, there are two things which we need to keep in mind. Our Chinese friends, although I can see both of them smiling over there, a lot of their technology has been used by, built using Indian brains. Okay? Just for example, before Trump, in his previous presidency, sanctioned Huawei, the chief strategy officer is an Indian American holding an American passport, which he says because it's easier to travel holding an American passport out of Bangalore. Okay, so keep that at the back of our mind. So quantity need not immediately translate into quality, and we have got an immensely resourceful and knowledgeable human resource. Only thing is, we have not put our strategy and policies into place to garner them. Okay, so that's one part. The second part is, let's also not create China as too much of a big bogey, because I notice one thing. Look at the United States, a liberal democracy, democratic, peaceful power transitions. Now they've got Doge, which they're trying to dodge, is going to dismantle the deep state. That's one part of it. Now you look at China, it's an autocratic state, but this democracy has, till that time, tried to pull the ladder up on open AI. They had made it so expensive because they can print the dollar. It reached a stage where they said that, it was projected to the globe that no one else can catch up to that AI. And there is China, okay, bought the whole thing down, autocratic state, creating an open source model and releasing it to the world. So, I hope I've answered your question.
I think the final bell is here. That, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and of course we can take any questions outside. Thank you.